Today I want to share with you my Persian learning adventure, and I want to talk about what I call the long road to fluency and what we need to do to make sure we maintain our motivation. We know that to learn a language, we need to be motivated initially, we need to maintain our motivation, and we need to spend the time. Of course, spending the time depends on our level of motivation. So I want to talk about Persian and my experience with Persian. I'm going to show you some excerpts of me speaking Persian 6 years ago and then just recently with my tutor. So, motivation. Well, to me, language learning, because I have so many languages that I have learned to varying degrees of fluency, my motivation is always this sense of adventure, this sense of discovery, learning about places that before I learned their language, the people might seem almost like a caricature, or they're not alive to me because I haven't been able to learn their language and learn about them through their language. So that's my motivation. So if I go back to my exposure to Persian, surprisingly, it starts with a trip that I made with my wife to Greece and then to Israel, which we had planned back in whenever it was, 2017. So prior to going to Greece, I spent a lot of time with Greek, 6-8 months, and I was able to use my Greek when in Greece, and I'll get back to that subject and why that's important. Hebrew was simply too difficult. I didn't put enough time into it. It's a different writing system. Well, so is Greek, but it's a completely different writing system and a different language system, and I got nowhere. And in Israel, in any case, I could speak English or Russian or French, and so I never made any progress in Hebrew. However, we went across to Jordan, and that's where my, surprisingly, Persian adventure began. We enjoyed our visit to Jordan. You'll see our great taxi driver, Hamza, who was our guide for 2-3 days, getting from Aqaba to Petra. He was just a great guy. I spoke very good English, by the way. But it suddenly dawned on me that there are a lot of people in the world who speak Arabic, and it's a big part of world history. So I said, you know what? I'm going to learn Arabic. So that's where it all started. So I started learning the Arabic alphabet, which is difficult. I don't want to underestimate how much of a challenge that is, because it's not just a matter of gradually learning more or less what the different characters represent in terms of sounds, and that's not always consistent, but then to get the brain to get used to that by doing enough reading. But because it's difficult to read, it's difficult to read enough to get used to it. So it's a bit of a vicious circle. At any rate, once I got back to Vancouver, I realized that while Arabic is spoken by almost 400 million people around the world, in Vancouver, there's another language that uses the Arabic script, which is spoken by a lot of people in Vancouver, particularly on the North Shore where I live, and that's Farsi or Persian. So I said, okay, I'm going to learn Persian. So you will see that around 2018, in the summer of 2018, my activities in Persian on Link pick up. Prior to that, I had mostly been focusing on Arabic, and I'll get into my experience with Arabic. I might even do another video on that subject again, but so the Persian starts in around that time. I'll let you listen to, sort of after my first 90-day challenge with Persian, how I managed to do in an interview with my tutor. Now, some people talk about, fluency in 3 months, fluency in a week, or all these different things. It's not difficult to get to a level where you can say something in the language, as you'll see in this video. I'm saying some things.
سلام.
سلام
رنا. چطوره؟
خوبم مرسی شما چطورین؟
بد نیستم مرسی.
چه خبر؟
چه خبر؟ خبر نیست. امروز در یوتیوب کانالم زبان language workout زبان تمرین رو شروع کردم.
So I want to here immediately talk about what I consider the 3 stages in that difficult road to fluency. A very kind follower of my YouTube channel once sent me this upside-down hockey stick, because I often refer to the upside-down hockey stick, how the initial stage in learning a language is a very steep climb, but we are encouraged because we have that sense that we're learning. We're dealing with the most frequent words in the language that are coming up all the time. We have that sense that we're going to really achieve fluency quickly and achieve our goals. And yet, pretty soon we arrive at this point in our climb, which is sometimes called A2 or B1 in the European framework of reference. It's when we have kind of learned a lot of high-frequency words. The language is not completely strange to us, and yet there's still lots that we don't understand. We don't understand movies. There's lots of unknown words in anything we want to read, and it's at that point that many people get discouraged. In fact, I even had a person on the comments section of my YouTube channel the other day say, every language that I've learned, I get to B1, and then I never seem to get beyond that. And so the beyond that is eventually fluency. So the definition of fluency is fluid. We don't really know what that means. I have called fluency the ability to be comfortable in the language and make the listener feel comfortable. That means a high level of comprehension. You can still make lots of mistakes, but you're sitting in that conversation, you're enjoying yourself, the person you're talking to is enjoying him or herself. To me, that's good enough. You don't have to be perfect, but it takes a long time to get there. And so that's phase 2, is that long road. Now, it's important to maintain your motivation when you're in that long road. If you are in a situation, as I was with Greek and even with Turkish, where I had this opportunity to visit the country, and I did the same in Ukrainian, I did the same in Czech, where you can visit the country where the language is spoken, that elevates you, because fluency implies speaking well. So however much vocabulary you have, passive vocabulary, active vocabulary, ultimately the test of fluency is your ability to speak. At least that's the way most people look at it. I am of the belief that if you have a high level of comprehension and you have a large vocabulary, you have a very high potential in the language. It might be a B2 potential. But until you have a lot of opportunity to use the language, lots of speaking opportunity, use the language in terms of speaking, without that opportunity, you will never reach that sense of comfort as a speaker of the language. So that will require either going to the country where the language is spoken, and even if you only stay there a few weeks, it gives you a different sense of the language. You're in a situation where you're using it regularly in a real situation. And I have had that in some languages. I've never had it in Persian. And so my Persian, in my mind, sits at a level where it could be better than it is. I have fairly good comprehension, but I'm not what I would call fluent. However, and I think this is important, in order to stay the course, you have to give yourself credit for what you can do and not focus on what you cannot do.
سوال من امروز درباره برنامه ریزیه. به نظر شما چرا برنامه ریزی مهمه؟
بدون برنامه، یعنی برنامه ریزی اینه مهمه چون که باید برای فعالیت ما چیزی که میخوام انجام میکنم باید یک راه دارم، یک سمت، یک شکل این فعالیت انجام کنم. نه فقط برنامه ریزی مهمه، همه زندگی ما بستگی به این مهارت، یعنی قدرت برنامه ریزی. نه فقط الان که من به زبان فارسی صحبت کنم، حتی در زبان انگلیسی مغز ما باید برنامه ریزی بکنم.
باید برنامه
چه چیزی باید حرف زدم. یعنی این قدرت برنامه ریزی بستگی به تجربه که داریم. So if you listen to this exchange that I have with my current tutor, Elahe, if you are a Persian speaker, you will recognize that I make quite a few mistakes. In fact, I make mistakes in that discussion that I didn't make 6 years earlier, because much of our grasp of the language can seem transitory, ephemeral. But it isn't really, because all of the things you've socked in there as memory, you know those structures, you know the subjunctive in Persian, you know vocabulary items. However, when you want to use it, you can't recall it, you can't retrieve it, or you've forgotten a word that you once knew. And this is not a function of memory, in my opinion. It's a function of recall. And it's important to remember, too, especially for someone at my stage in life, as we get older, our memory relies less on recall. And I'm not going to go into all the... In fact, I might just do a video on this subject, but I don't remember all the explanations. But it is true. As we get older, it's harder to recall things. It's harder to remember. Even I notice, I can't remember the person's name. And it's because we are weaker as we get older in our ability to recall. However, we are just as good in terms of memory where we recognize things. So the comprehension remains strong, and if given a choice, is that person's name John or Bob, I'll yeah, it's John. But our ability to sort of pull forward a word or a grammatical structure without having that opportunity to compare it to something is weakened. And we have to accept that. And we have to find ways, as I do, to enjoy our engagement with the language. We have to manage our expectations. And I thoroughly enjoy my engagement with Persian. I enjoy all the things that I have learned about Persian history. I enjoy the experience of listening to content, even content on other subjects that come to me through different podcasts that I follow in Persian. Podcasts that I'm able to read and listen to and understand, granted using link. However, I'm still enjoying and taking advantage of everything I've put into learning this language. So I give myself credit for what I am able to do rather than worrying about what I'm not able to do. And of course, part of the things that I'm able to do in the language is in North Vancouver, frequent encounters with Persian speakers here locally, in a store, in a restaurant, wherever it may be. And it's, again, that sense of satisfaction, that sense of connecting with people from a different culture, that sense of connecting through history, a different part of the world, a different time. All of these things are very valid reasons for learning a language. So to that extent, while the road to fluency in Persian is a long one, and I haven't yet reached that end goal, I have reached a level of comfort in the language. And in my recent exchange with tutor Elahe, while I make mistakes, I'm not afraid of whatever she's going to ask me. I understand everything she's going to say, or most things, and if I need to, I can ask her to repeat. But by and large, I'm comfortable in that exchange. So therefore, in my opinion, I'm pleased with what I have achieved. It's a long road. I am comfortable, but I'm not yet fluent. So I hope that's relevant to some of your experience, and I will try to do a video next time around about this whole tip of the tongue experience that we basically are going to encounter more and more as we get older in our language learning adventure, but it doesn't prevent us from improving our comprehension, improving our vocabulary, and enjoying the language. Thank you for listening. Bye for now.